Oh, have to readjust all the time. Is that better? Worse? Nobody cares. Okay, I think that's better. Hello, hello, and welcome to yet another Saturday of Pepper Plays. An exciting day here. Hopefully, I'm going to learn how to play chess. I know very little about chess. I know the pieces, the names, pawn, rook, knight, bishop, king, queen, right? Those are all the pieces.
Yeah.
I am reading a fantastic book series that's kind of like MI6 meets Harry Potter. And the first book was called The Rook. And, you know, it's like a little spy novel, and the spies have chess names. It's fun. Anyway, and, there's wizarding chess, and it's the same as regular chess, just the pieces attack one another. So that's fun.
Just has
Anyways,
the word wizard in it.
it does. It just has the word wizard, and the pieces are magical. That sounds like fun to me. Anyway, but yeah, so Diva, my husband, is going to teach me how to play chess. So that's something new, which is the whole premise of Pepper Plays. If you're tuning in for the first time or the third time or whatever, I am Pepper, and I am, a seasoned lady, and I have really been more into my video gaming, what, in the last 10 years, probably since we've started dating, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that I played video games as a kid, right? Like we had a ColecoVision when I was really younger. That obviously should tell you how old I am right now if we had a ColecoVision. Like Burger Time, love that. Fantastic game. And we had the original NES, so I played all of those games, and I played, uh, I think all the way up. So there was the first Mario, right?
Right.
Which is the very rudimentary platformer, still a fantastic game. Um, and then there was, what was the second one? Just Super Mario 2.
Yeah.
And the third one was just 3.
Well, and you don't even like technically there was one before Super Mario that was an arcade game.
Oh, I didn't play that one. I played the
Yeah.
one on the NES. Yeah, so I've played those 3 games. And I do really enjoy platformers. So yeah, that is my, and then there was just like this jump in years where I probably didn't play a lot of video games at all, and now I do. I don't play them every day like Diva does. He's an everyday gamer. Sometimes I get every day in. I've been trying to play the Isaac Daily, but sometimes I don't always get to it. But yeah, so that was the whole premise of the show slot, Pepper Plays, that I play video games I've never played before to kind of spread out, see what type of games that I don't like. So far, we've learned that I like platformers and rogue-like or rogue-lite games. Um, I don't like, what was that game that I played that one day that was kind of story driven?
Like the point and click adventure game.
Yeah, point and click adventure, not my
Yeah.
bag. I found it kind of tedious. That was me. That's me. If you think they're awesome, more power to you. Everybody's different, which is great because there's so many different types of games that out there to play, from phone games to, you know, stuff that's only on PC to stuff that's only on console. There's just such a select, it's just bananas how many options there are. So, which is again why we started this segment, so I could, learn those things about myself. I did start my first what was that? The first person shooter? Is that is
Yeah.
that is that what Skyrim is?
Sort of, but basically.
First person shooter adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have not played it since the first time I played it, so I don't know what that means, but um but maybe I'll pick it back up, and maybe I just have to spend more time with it till it gets more interesting for me.
I think it means that you need to switch to a mouse and keyboard because I think it's going to be too confusing to use a controller. Because if you're not used to it, like using one thumb to move and one thumb to look at the same time is very difficult,
It is. It's weird. I think it's weird.
as opposed to being able to use your mouse, which is much more intuitive to someone who's never done it before.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, so that is the whole spiel about Pepper Plays. You can always visit our YouTube channel, which is also the Taculars, and look at past videos. My favorite is to watch the first time I played Binding of Isaac, and I'm sure there's more recent, so just date it out and pick a more recent. And I've vastly improved my game. I've actually beaten Greed mode on Azazel and unlocked crap. What's her name? I was just playing her last night.
Lilith.
Lilith and unlock Lilith. So I think that's a huge accomplishment. I would never even thought to try doing that at all. So yeah. So I have definitely improved my game, so to speak. And so today is yet another venture into the unknown for Pepper, and I'm learning how to play chess. So
Yay.
I'll turn it over to my favorite person, Diva, and he will, help me along the way.
So the way that we're gonna start this, so this is like for those of you hoping to like see some hot action chess gameplay, you're gonna be very disappointed.
Very disappointed.
Because we're gonna start basically at the beginning. So you say you know the chess pieces, which is good.
Yes.
But let's start with like chess board basics. So the chess board is labeled by rank and file. Your files are your vertical lines as you're looking at the board and are lettered. So like
H
file
G.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And all of the numbers and letters start from the bottom left corner of the white board and
Okay.
are mirrored for the black board. So like your bottom left is H8, my bottom left is A1.
Oh, okay.
This is why they use those not those connotations, because then it doesn't matter which side of the board you're talking about. D4 is the same on regardless of where you're looking at
Regardless,
the board.
just right. Okay, that makes sense.
And so when you are looking at like someone like professionals playing chess, you'll hear them say like, knight to F3, which would be like me moving my knight from where it is to F3. So the actual notation is where that piece moved to, and they're making the assumption that you understand that that piece can move from wherever it is to that position. And then every major chess piece starts with a capital letter, with the exception of pawns. The king is like K. So if you see the notation to be like K E2 would mean that your king moved from wherever he was to A or E2 or whatever.
So is the knight then a lowercase
The knight
K?
is an N
Oh,
because you
sure.
always use uppercase letters. I don't know why. This is the way that it works.
Zero. What are you doing, dog?
And so some basics of movement. Your pawns can only go forward and can only capture in diagonals. So like if you're looking at your pawn, like your little dude that's out in the middle there,
Right. Yeah.
he could move forward one tile, and that's the only thing he can do because there are no pieces, because he can only capture those two spaces that are diagonal him, the two
So I
white
can't
spaces that are diagonal him.
move so I can't move across you. I can only.
Correct. And pawns cannot move backwards either. They can only move forward.
Interesting. But I can move diagonally to like capture a piece.
Correct. And you can only move diagonal to capture a piece. So like a pawn cannot move forward to capture a piece. And
How?
then starting. Yes.
Sorry, I was going to say, how far back does chess date?
A long time. Like probably thousands of years.
Really?
I don't actually know.
So
That's a good
weird.
question.
Google knows. Google knows everything.
Right? Come on, Wikipedia. Tell me.
Who's faster? History of
So
chess.
the 15th century, the rules were standardized. So maybe only like 600 years, 700 years. Well, sometime
Yeah,
before
the
the
history of
7th
chess can be
century.
traced
Well,
back to nearly 1500 years. Though the earliest origins are uncertain, the earliest predecessors of the game probably originated in India before the 6th century AD. From
yeah,
India, the
there you
game
go.
spread to Persia. When the Arabs conquered Persia, chess was taken up by the Muslim world and subsequently spread to southern Europe. So there you go. In Europe, chess evolved into roughly its current form in the 15th century.
Okay, so pawns, right?
Yep.
The only weird thing about pawns is that from their home position, which for black is the 7 rank. So ranks are your horizontal grids.
Okay.
Files are your vertical. Ranks are horizontal.
Rank
Hence the term rank and
file.
file, which
Oh.
tells you where the position of your chess piece is.
Oh.
Um, your two, so white pawns start on the 2 rank and black pawns start on the 7 rank.
Okay.
As long as they are in their home position, they can start with a move of 2. So they can jump 2 squares forward.
So how did my pawn get where it is? If it can
So
only
that
move forward and it can only capture diagonally.
so that was a quick little game that I just set up to make sure it was working.
Oh,
So what happened was I led with uh, e2 or a pawn to e3, or no, pawn to e4. You led with pawn to f5. I then did
oh, so I
pawn
captured a pawn.
d4, and then your dude captured my pawn.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and then if you go back to your 8 rank, my 1 rank, you have your rooks. Your rooks can only move horizontal. I'm skipping the knight for a second because they have fancy rules. The
So the
bishops.
so the rook is like the little castle guy, right?
Yep.
He
Yes.
can only move this way?
He can only go up and down or left and right.
Oh, so just okay, so horizontally and vertically. He can't move diagonally.
He can only move on the rank or the file.
Okay. Can he move back or can he only move forward?
Every other piece in the game can move any direction.
Oh, okay. Just the pawns are the only
The
ones.
pawns are the only ones that cannot go backwards.
I feel like I should write some of this down or I'm going to forget it.
It's one of those things that the more you play, it becomes
Well, sure.
like you'll figure it out. I'm skipping the knight. The bishops move only on diagonals, so like they cannot go horizontals. And then you have a white bishop and a dark bishop, a light bishop and a dark bishop. I guess it depends on the colors of the board. On this board, it would be a white bishop and a green bishop. And
Oh,
that
so
means
that's
that
like
they will forever only ever be on that color tile.
Oh, well, that's helpful.
So like your f8 bishop
Hmm.
can only ever move on the dark tiles. There is literally no scenario in which that piece can move off of those tiles
Okay, so
because it can only move diagonal.
so bishop can only move on diagonal.
Correct. Your queen is the omni piece. It can move an infinite number of spaces in any direction.
Of course she can.
It is the strongest piece.
Because she can move anywhere?
Yeah. And is one of the pieces that is the easiest to make a mate with. We'll get to that.
Right.
And then your king can move. Your king can also move in any direction, but can only move one space at a time.
Oh, so how many spaces can the queen move? Any number of?
Unlimited number of spaces.
Oh, you
You
go,
could
girl.
launch her off the board if you could.
You go, girl. See, that's how it should be. The queen has the most power. Don't you forget it.
And the knights are sort of the unique pieces because
Okay, go
they
back to the
have.
king again, though.
Oh, okay. Going back to the king.
What can he do?
King can move in any direction, but can only move one square.
One square at a time.
Yep.
I hope everyone can hear my dog chewing on her bone.
Yep.
So he can move in any direction, but only one square at a time.
Correct.
That's kind of annoying.
Yes.
Okay.
And then knights have the most awkward movement pattern because they can move two spaces in the rank and one space in the file, or vice versa.
So is that
if you're looking at it, your knight, your G8 knight can move to H6 or F6, which is up 2 and over 1. If it had the space, it could also move to E7, which is over 2 and up 1.
okay.
Does that make sense?
So it can only move on the rank and file, but it can move two at a time?
So it moves, it has the little Tetris piece, is the way it can move. So it's up 2 and over 1.
Knight. Up to
Or any combination of 2 and 1. Like it has to be 1 in one direction and 2 in the other direction.
or two in one direction and one in the other direction?
Yeah.
Up two and over one, or
Over 1 and
or
up or
up
down 2.
one and down two. Oh, is that
The other sorry.
is that right? Like up two and down one? Up
Yep,
one
it
and
can
down
go.
two?
Yep.
Any combination of two and one?
As long as they are on. So one is rank and one is file.
Right.
So like you couldn't just go over 2 and back 1.
Right. No, I understand that. So that's what I meant when I asked they can only move on the rank and file.
Yes. 1 rank, 2 file, or 2 rank, 1 file.
Okay. That's weird.
And then the unique thing about knights is knights are the only piece that can pass through other pieces to get where they're going.
So it's not like they're capturing that piece. They can just essentially bypass the piece to the space next to it.
Correct. And they are the only piece that can do that. No other piece can pass through other pieces without taking them, including your own pieces.
Oh,
None of your own pieces can pass through other pieces
bypass.
except for the knight, which can jump over.
So you can bypass all pieces without capturing.
Correct.
That's weird.
Knights are funky, and good chess players can use knights extremely effectively, and it blows my mind.
Because you watch, who have you been watching lately that's been streaming chess?
I've pretty much only been watching Northern Lion,
Right.
and
Okay.
he's about a 1500 rating chess player, and it's like even just playing at that rating is just blows my mind. Because like my biggest gap is like I don't have any of the like openings or defenses memorized. So like I know that the Italian defense exists. I don't know what it is.
Oh.
And it all has to do with like what pawns you play where, and then what like how you open them. And chess.com is really cool about telling you what like opener and defense you're playing. Like if you look in the top right of your screen,
Mhm.
like it said that you played the Dutch defense against my stun gambit. I have no idea what those are, but I know that it's some combination of the pieces that you open.
Oh, okay.
So let's just jump into a little game.
Are we rematching? Is this game over or is it just started?
Oh God, open challenges. What does that mean? Hold on.
Bum, bum, bum.
I have to figure out. I have to figure out how this actually works. I don't actually know how to.
Just gonna get some hand cream on my very dry hands because I wash them 52,000 times a day. A little kitchen lemon.
Do I have?
It's delightful. Yes.
So maybe you have to do it.
What do I have to do?
So go up at the very top right. It says new game.
Okay.
Click on that.
Okay.
On that little drop down menu where it says time, Oh, yours doesn't say that.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. Click on my name, friend. Play a friend. Click on my name.
I did that. What now what?
At the very top, it is the timer.
Okay.
Click on daily time, 1 day.
Where?
Did you
I clicked on your
click on
name.
my name? So you
Yeah.
gotta see that giant white box that's covering up everything at the top? You need to get rid of that little white box. So just click next to it. There you
Oh.
go. Click on the timer.
Yep.
Click on 1 day.
Oh, okay.
It's unrated. Like click off the rating.
What does the rating do?
Your rating is how good of a chess player you are.
Oh, well, I suck, so.
Click on that second one. Like allow
Takebacks?
takebacks. Yeah. And then I think the other two were fine. And then click play and see what it says.
Play fair. Follow these rules to keep chess fun. Treat others how you want to be treated. No help from players, applications, or engines. Finish every game. No quitting or stalling. If you do not follow these rules, your account may be closed and labeled publicly as fair play violator. By clicking below, you agree to follow the entire fair play policy and terms of service. That basically wants to, stop you from cheating.
Yeah, don't be a jerk.
These are very simple human rules to follow that have not been followed as of late. Okay, now what? Do I click play?
Yeah, click play.
New challenge issued. Your game will start when your opponent accepts. Challenge!
This is the only problem. It's like I don't know where it puts my challenges.
I'm drinking some delightful
Challenges.
tart
Peppertacular wants
apple
to play.
cherry something
Accept.
herbal tea. That's really yummy. In my favorite mug.
Okay. So here we are. Did your board update?
It did not.
Oh, I clicked accept.
Yeah, it did not. Do I have to go to open challenges?
I just wonder if I have to play first. So I'm gonna play first.
Oh, why wouldn't it just update my board to start with? Nothing's happening.
Click on the little chess.com symbol in the top left.
This?
Oh, there are all my challenges. Look at that. Oh, just decline that. I think. Oh, or not.
Now what?
So you need to clear all your challenges because, like, I challenged you a bunch and it just didn't update on your thing. I don't know how to get to that game now.
What happened? No!
Yeah, so don't click it, just mouse over it.
Oh, well, that's dumb. Now what do I do?
So you have like two little ones. You see the little red marks on the left there?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what does that say?
You and Diva are now friends. Challenge to play.
Oh, no, okay.
Play.
My game's at the bottom. Oh, there you go.
Is that your play?
Hey, there was the game that I played. No, you want to abort that game. So, abort. I think it's at the bottom right.
This is amazing.
Your other right?
Right. Abort.
Okay. Because I didn't realize that the day thing was going to be.
Where
Like,
did
that's
my little
obnoxious.
image of myself go?
Play a friend. Let's try this. Unreal.
Now, are you sending me a challenge or what's
I will in just a moment. Keep your
farts?
pants on.
Farts. While we're waiting, I hope everyone is safe today. And
Okay,
now
now
what?
check out your top left again.
Dios mío. Messages.
Let me check it. Because I don't know when it sends you, like...
I don't have anything over here.
What are your messages? Check your messages.
Oh my God, you're so annoying.
You're annoying.
This?
I don't
1
know.
hour ago. You sent it an
so
hour ago.
No, so that's not it. That was when I was testing crap. Delete that message. What is that one on the left there?
What one? This?
Click on that one. When was that? Oh, that's just welcome. Get that
Yeah.
out of there.
Oh my goodness, dog. How do I... Now how do I get back?
Where are you trying to get back to? Click on play. But go to play and then no. Well, okay. Very quick to click on things.
Well, that's what you told me to do. Now what, smarty pants?
Live chess? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never played on this before.
Well, why are we playing on something you've never played on before?
Because the alternative is to... There it is, right there on the bottom right. You're
Here?
on the right. Hey.
Ay, Dios mío.
Because the alternative is to play on a little wooden chessboard that we don't own. So you're white, so you need to make a first move.
Your game with Peppertacular was auto-aborted. Oh.
In 45 seconds, you gotta go.
Gosh, quit yelling at me. I
time.
don't like it.
Well, stop. Just move a piece. You have to move a piece. I will move a piece, and then the game will stop yelling at you. There we go.
Why do I have a time limit? I don't like time limits.
We will get to that. Just move.
So,
just move. Doesn't matter. Move anything. Because I just don't know how long it takes before it stops. So why don't you just take my pawn and then we'll actually go. Because I don't know if you have to play two. Because at some point it'll stop pressing you to move.
it won't let me. Can I only take you diagonally?
You can only take diagonally.
Oh, so I have to land on you. I didn't see that. I thought it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Dog, what are you doing? Why are you chewing on my chair?
All right.
So we're good?
So we're good for now. I don't quite know. I don't know if that's like a new feature, like if you haven't played for very long. Like I don't know why it requires you to
make some quick moves.
Yeah, because it only gives you a minute before it like auto resigns the board.
That's dumb.
Which is dumb. I don't really understand, but especially for an unranked game. So basically the point of the first handful of moves is you just get your pawns forward enough so that you can start using your other pieces. Pawns are mostly used for defense.
Okay.
And so a lot of the times what you'll see like professional chess players do is set up their pawns in diagonals. And so like, I don't know if this is a good move, but like now I have this nice little row of pawns.
Pawns blocking.
Yeah. And so that's usually a good idea because then you can start moving like your knights and your bishops. So like now my bishop is open to move out. And
is that why that square is highlighted for you, or?
That is because that's the square that is highlighted that is empty is where the piece was. The square that is highlighted with the piece in it is where the piece moved.
Okay. And so you can
the cool thing about this is if you grab a piece, like if you just click on the piece, it'll tell you where it can move to.
Oh.
Also, generally, you want to move your first piece 2 pieces, almost always.
Oh. Your first pawn or your first piece?
Your first pawn. Like pawns in general, unless you're setting up a defense, almost always want to move 2 pieces forward. Or 2 squares forward.
Okay, and so then the overarching objective of chess is obviously checkmate, right?
Correct. And check is what is called when your king is under threat of being taken by another piece.
Okay.
And then when that happens, the only option you have is to stop you can stop a check one of two ways. So like I will actually put you into check with my bishop.
Oh, that happened fast.
It's because you moved your pawn in front of your
Pawn.
king.
Well, I was going to move another one.
No, that's fine. So now the game will not let you do any move other than remove your king from check. And there are three ways you can do this.
So,
One is taking the piece that is threatening your king. Two is to just move your king out of the way, or three is to put a piece between the threatening piece and your king.
well, the only place I can move my king is closer to the bishop or on the green square, right?
Yeah. So moving the king is not an option.
Right.
So you have three other options.
And this bishop can only move onto green, right?
Correct.
And then my knight. So is my knight the option?
You have three pieces you can move to block my bishop.
Okay, so the rook can only move rank and file, but he can't move through my pieces. The knight can move through my pieces, correct?
Correct.
So my knight can move rank and file up to and over 1. So if he moved 1, 2, he could move over and block the bishop, but then would that make the bishop be able to take my knight?
Yes.
But that's better than taking my king.
It's not necessarily that it's better, it's required.
Oh, so that's my only option then, right?
It is not your only option. You have two other options.
Well, the first option was to move my king, and there's only 2 places I can move him, and we already
There
discussed.
are two other pieces that could move to block my bishop.
Could I move my pawn?
No.
No. Well, we already talked about my bishop not being an option because he can only move diagonally.
So why is the bishop not an option?
So can the bishop move here? Does that block it? Because he can only move on these green, right?
And so can my bishop, can only move on the green.
Oh, got it.
Correct. Like the other option would have been to move your queen down, but in general, you don't want to use your queen to block anything other than another queen. Because if you had moved your queen there, I could have just taken your queen with a bishop, and that is considered a very bad trade.
Right. I would imagine that that's a bad trade.
And so using the rook to block my rook, and then now I have an option
You mean
of
the bishop to block your bishop?
bishop, sorry. And now I have the option I could take your bishop, which would basically be a trade because I would lose my bishop and you would lose your bishop. Or I could retreat or just leave him there. Although it would be very bad for me to just leave him there because you could just take him.
Right.
I suppose I could move this guy here because now my bishop is guarded. Because so now there's this pawn hanging out, which if you decide to take my bishop, I can take whatever that piece is with my pawn.
So a bishop can only move 1 square at a time diagonally.
No.
No, he can move.
The only pieces that can move a limited number of squares are pawns and the knights and the king. Every other piece can move an unlimited number of squares in the direction they are allowed to move.
Who is texting you? Shut
I
your
don't know.
texting off or put your phone on silent.
Don't you tell me what to do,
I will always tell you what to do.
Miss 8 million.
I'm the queen. She can do whatever she wants. So saith the chessboard.
Oh, I was like, what is Skoglund just sent me a picture and I could not figure out why he was sending me this picture of him playing WoW, but it's because he got an ultra wide monitor.
Oh.
It's fancy.
I don't know. I think our monitors are nice.
They're very nice.
Okay. Anyway. Okay, so now it's my turn, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And so I should still be trying to protect my king?
Yeah, but you also want to try to move some pawns out of the way of your other pieces. So the common term for like getting your pieces to do things is called developing. So like
Okay.
developing your Generally, your knights, just from my general observations, developing your knights and your bishops usually happen first, and then you develop your queen or your rook. So actually, probably for you, the best option, if you wanted to be a jerk, you could put my king into check with your queen,
Oh,
because your queen can move along that diagonal to put my king into check.
where is she moving?
It,
Like here? Like up? You said on the diagonal.
yeah. So the queen that's not the queen, that's the king.
Oh, I thought that was the.
E1 is your king. D1 is your queen.
Oh, so I've clicked on my queen, so it tells me all the places she can move.
Correct.
So if I move her up here next to your bishop, what is that? That's what A4.
Yeah. Then
That
my
that
king would be in check. For reference, this is a terrible move because there's about 3 things I can do to either make you retreat or be able to take your queen, but it is an option, and it would require me to do something to either take your queen or put something in the way of the queen or the king.
So is it more strategical? Is that a word? Strategical? Stra-
Yes.
is it a better strategy? I think that's really what I wanted to say. So is it a better strategy? Hey, hi, Richard. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We're learning how to play chess today. I'm sorry, I'm learning how to play chess today. Not Jason. He knows how. Anyway, um, so would it be a better strategy for me to move a pawn?
In the early game, absolutely.
Are we no longer in the early game?
We are still in the early game.
Okay. So if I just move my pawn here, what can your bishopy guy do? Since we're really not necessarily playing for winning,
Like
we're
if you moved your pawn up to like D3,
yeah.
I mean that would work. I don't know that there would be a purpose to it, but doesn't so like moving your pawn forward doesn't really unlock anyone from any of their positions, and it doesn't move to threaten my bishop. You could move a pawn, your A2 pawn to A3, which would threaten my bishop, require me to do something, or else you would just take my bishop. Yeah, like that would be a good
So
move.
that would cause you to retreat or to take a pawn?
So I have 2 options. I could take that pawn with my bishop, but then you would just take my bishop with your other pawn,
Okay.
because now that pawn is guarded by another pawn.
Oh, right on.
That's a very important strategy, especially early game, is guarding other pieces with pawns. Because pawns are sort of like they seem powerless, but they're super strong, especially in this early game because they can set up these nice little guarding things. So it's like if
Mhm.
you had decided to take my rook with your rook or my bishop with your bishop, I would have just taken your bishop with this pawn because he's guarding
Oh,
him. But now you've put me in a position where I could take that pawn and then I would lose a bishop, which sacrificing a pawn for a bishop
well,
would be a bad move on my
right.
part. Which is a great move on your part because now I'm in, and this is actually I didn't see this. This is a great what is called a split. So I really only have a couple options. I could move my bishop back to A5, but then you can just take my bishop with your bishop, and then I don't
Oh,
have a response to that. And so this is what's called a split because you forced me into a position where I have to move. I don't think this is actually a split, but you forced my bishop into a position where it doesn't matter where I put him,
hmm.
he's dead, and
Oh,
I don't have a retaliatory move
okay. Because if you move him forward, I can just take him with my bishop, right?
or a pawn. So if
Or
I moved him up to c3, like you could take him with a pawn, you could take him with a bishop, or your knight, you could take him with the knight.
right,
Uh, if I move him back, he's still in range of your bishop, so he literally has nowhere to go
right.
that isn't going to result in him dying.
Okay.
And so the best move for me is actually to just trade bishops.
Oh.
Because you forced that trade because there was
Oh,
nothing else I could do.
so you just took my bishop.
Yeah.
Oh.
But now you can you can take this bishop with 3 other pieces. You could take it with the king, you could take it with the queen, or you could take it with the knight. And
Because I can.
I would say probably take it with the queen
The
because that
queen.
starts to develop your queen forward. I don't know if that's good, but
Well, right. That the game is saying that's my move is to take your bishop when I click on her.
yeah, well, it tells you that's one of the moves that can happen. Yes.
But there isn't another move. That's the move they say it should happen.
Well, it is the only move that can happen because your king is in check.
So I have to take your bishop because my king is in check.
Correct. But you could take it with the king. Like you could move the king out. I don't know why you would do that, but you could.
Okay.
And so that's what's most commonly referred to as a trade. So I just traded a bishop for a bishop, and we both came out even in pieces after the end of that.
Okay.
Um,
Now it's your move, right?
yeah. And I'm going to I'm going to start using knights because knights do weird things. Oh, not right there though. So I would play around with your knights because I think knights are the hardest to get used to because of their funky movement patterns.
Right, because the knights, they only move on rank and file, but they move 3 spaces at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So does it matter which knight I move or
I mean, that's sort of up to you. I don't think it does. But if you move your knight, your queen side knight, this is another term. This is fun. So your board is split into 2 halves, king side and queen side.
Hmm,
Your king side is E through H, and your king side or your king side is E through H. Your queen side is A through D.
Mm-hmm.
This is important because I would suggest moving your knight, moving your B1 knight,
Okay.
because then I can show you the magic that is castling, which is a neat little move.
Okay.
Um, oh, that's a great move. Well, then I'm gonna do that. So now you have this cool thing to do. If you have on your back line an open space between a rook and your king, you can do what's known as castling.
Okay.
So I think you do it by picking up your king and trying to put him on the dark space.
But I can only move him 1 square at a time, right?
Correct, unless you are castling. What happens in a castle
Oh.
is your king will move 2 spaces to the left. To the left? Yeah. Your king
Mm-hmm.
will move 2 spaces to the left, and your rook will move to the white space on its left,
So
or its right
1,
on your
2.
screen.
So I move my king here.
Yeah.
Oh. And so that's an automatic move that the rook moved to. So what is that? What is castling? What does that mean?
So that's what a castle is. That is
Okay.
that's your king moving 2 spaces and your castle moving to the other side of your king.
Is that why is that automatic?
Because it's a rule in the game.
That's not helpful.
Well, I don't know how you want me to define that. I guess because it's a rule. If you have open spaces between your king and your rook, you can castle, which is your king gets to move 2 spaces and your castle gets to move to the other side of the king.
So essentially, you mean your rook
Rook. What did I say?
castle.
Sure. You get to castle on, and then you get the cool symbol under the move, which is the 3 O's, which means you castled queenside. Queenside being the fact that you moved your rook on the queen side of the board.
Okay.
Because then I can do the
Right.
same thing with my king. I can castle kingside, which means my king moves to G8 and my rook moves to F8.
Oh, that's weird.
It's one of those moves that is purely defensive because it gets your rook out of its little corner
Right.
and moves it's a move that allows your king to move 2 spaces, which you otherwise can never do.
Right. Okay. So now it's my turn again?
It is your turn again.
Okay, so again, going back to the overarching objective is checkmate, right?
Correct. And a checkmate is any check that has no possible moves to remove that check. So you cannot take any pieces. You can't take the piece that's making the check, and your king can't go anywhere to get out of it. And that is a checkmate.
Okay.
And in general, you do that by like there's this whole the whole like meta game is trying to put your opponent in positions where you can take their pieces faster than they can take yours.
Right.
Because there are some early game mates you can do, but they're very rare
Hmm.
and very hard if you don't know what you're doing.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I don't know how to do them either. Apparently, the fastest mate in the game is 4 moves,
Wow. That is fast.
which requires you to basically move your pawn, like the 2 pawns in front of your king away, and then the other player to just shove their king in the corner or their queen in the corner. So your king has nowhere to go, and none of the pieces can get out.
Okay, so what is a good strategical move at this point for me?
So I would so you have a couple options. Currently the knight in c3 is in a good place because it's protecting the pawn on d5.
Okay.
Um,
Right. Oh, okay. Right on.
so really, the next move would probably be to develop your other knight, just to get him out there.
My other knight.
Yeah.
My other.
To either h3 or f3. You could move your queen out there, but she doesn't really have anywhere to go that isn't protected.
My horsey.
Yeah.
Giddy up.
Because like you've trapped my knight, my a6 knight, like he's sort of dead in the water over there.
You're welcome. What about this knight over here? What's he doing? Your h6 knight.
I could move him, but he's sort of in an awkward position too. Oh, I should have moved him to f5. Oh well.
So now why did you decide to move that pawn?
Because it sets up that fun little defense. So now he is protecting my c5 pawn, and he's also protecting a5. Really, it's just to protect the c5 pawn. So like if you decided to move your d3 pawn forward, like I could take him and the c5 block is still protected. Or if you moved your knight to d4, your f3 knight to d4, like that square is now protected as well.
Hey, thanks. Oh, I'm going to absolutely mispronounce your name, but thank you for, giving us a like. We're learning how to play chess today on Pepper Plays.
So probably I would suggest advancing some pawns. Like a good move would probably be to move up your g2 pawn to g4.
Okay.
Oh, that's actually a terrible move. I should not have told you
Thanks.
to do that.
So whatever, I mean, we're learning, so I'm not worried about winning or losing right now. Like
Yeah.
that's not the.
No, that would have been a mistake because now I can just take you with my knight.
What are you taking me with? I mean, what?
My knight.
No, so you're taking my pawn, or are you? Is there a
Yeah, I
piece
would
that you're
take your pawn.
Okay,
I would
thank
take your
you.
pawn with my knight. So a better play would have probably been like the h2 pawn.
Which is what I was going to move.
Um,
But whatever. We're learning.
we're learning. That's also dangerous because now if I use my knight to take that pawn, like my knight just sort of gets free rein to your back line. So that was a
Oh,
double extra bad move. So
way to
that
go.
was
Thanks,
yeah.
Pratt.
So I won't capitalize on that blunder because that was my own fault. So now you could move your like h2 pawn to h3, which then protects that pawn, which should have probably been the first move.
That's what I was going to do.
Because now that pawn is guarded.
Never.
And then I'm going to do the same thing.
Okay. So you've guarded your pawns. Farts.
And so now it sort of gets into some fun, like trying to figure out what exactly we're doing. Because at some point you have to move something somewhere.
That's going to be taken by something.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to get aggressive next turn.
Oh, are you now?
Yeah.
So what would be the benefit of moving my bishop or my rook, my formerly king side?
Just to get them out there, because they're right. Because when they're hanging out in your back line, they're just not. They're
They're
not
kind
doing
of
anything.
right.
Um,
Okay, so now why did you move your queen? Or do you have
oh,
a
I
longer strategy, or did
I
you
did
not
have a
mean?
plan of I did have a plan of attack, and then I realized that where I wanted to go is actually being protected by a knight. So that's actually not going to work.
So now your queen is just out there?
Yeah. So at this point, I think I'm going to have to decide. I'm going to have to decide to make a trade. And so there are a couple, because like you don't really have anything that you can trade without losing a piece.
Hmm.
Because like trading any non-pawn for a pawn is a bad trade.
Right.
Like if you trade a knight, like one of your knights for one of my pawns, that's a bad trade. But if you trade one of your knights for like one of my knights or like one of my bishops, that's a good trade because they're worth roughly the same amount of points. Um,
So if I moved my f3 knight to take your e5 pawn, could then
mhm,
your f6 pawn take my knight?
absolutely, and
Okay.
that would be a bad trade.
Well, yeah, I get
Yep.
that, but I have to talk it out,
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yep.
which is the whole point of learning, right?
Yep. Nope. That would be a great move.
For you.
Correct. Yeah, that would be a great move for me. It'd be a blunder for you. It'd be a great move for
A
me.
great move for you, a bad move for me.
Yeah. Correct.
And so explaining to folks my thought process right now is because I'm learning how to play. It's actually helping me to click on the different chess pieces, and so so I'm a very visual person, and so I can visualize the moves, and then I could ask Diva about what this would produce and the outcome. And again, we're not playing to win right now; we're playing to learn. So. So if you're tuning in for some hard-hitting chess, we're very sorry. We're not producing that yet. Might take a while. Good chess player isn't born overnight unless you're, one of those super genius kids or something. I'm not. But I do like a good strategy. And so that's my thought process at this point, and that's why I'm just randomly clicking on the different chess pieces so I can see where they're allowed to move, and then I can ask Diva, would this be a good move and why? And then what his counter would be, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I have my c3 knight highlighted, and you know all the moves it can make. Would any of those, because if I move my c3 knight to say uh, b5, could what benefit would that give me, if any?
It wouldn't,
Right.
and then I would just take you with my queen.
Oh, you would, yeah, okay. Oh, right. I forgot she was right
So
there.
your knights are sort of pinned. They don't really have any good places to go, but they're sort of protecting other pieces. Because like
Right.
you have
So
a
I'm
knight protecting a rook and a queen. You have a knight protecting that center pawn. So in terms of development, like
there's
you
not
could
a
move like
because
one of your back pawns forward.
I was going to say because I can't really move this queen because if I move her, you're just going to take her with a pawn, and that would just be a huge blunder.
Yeah.
And it doesn't
Y-
make any sense to move her back, does
Yeah.
it?
Not right now.
Not right now. So I'd be better just to move a pawn
Probably.
out.
Like you could develop your like E2 pawn.
Okay, that's what I'll do.
Um, so I am going to set up myself to initiate a trade.
With your other bishop.
Yeah.
So is that why you've moved him there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my intention with him is to take your D5 pawn with the expectation that you will take my D5 pawn with your knight, and then I will take your D5 knight with my queen.
Okay, so what is your expectation that I'm moving on this turn?
I didn't have an expectation, but what you could do if you saw someone doing this,
Hmm.
you could move your E3 pawn forward to protect your D5 pawn, so that if I take that with my bishop, you can just take my bishop with your pawn.
Oh, that's kind of crappy. But couldn't you take my pawn with your pawn?
No, which pawn?
Your your e5 pawn.
My E5 pawn is protecting F4 and D4, not E4, because your pawns cannot take forward.
Oh, they can only take diagonally.
They can only
So you're
take
talking
diagonally.
about this pawn, my e3
I,
pawn.
your E3 pawn, yes, because now that blocks out my bishop from initiating that trade.
Right, because your bishop can only move diagonally on that color.
Yeah.
Right. So now what is your move?
God, this is weird. Well, I guess I'm get a little aggro against your knight. So this is a different trade because your F3 knight is not protected by anything
Right.
at the moment. And so I've put you in a spot where you either have to trade knights with me, um, or you could run away.
Run away.
But if my knight moves into that F3 position,
Right,
I've
he's
set up a fork between your queen and your rook.
just not
So if my knight is sitting in F3, he threatens your rook at H2 and your queen at D2. So you would only get to move one of them, and then I would take the other piece.
so I should take your knight is what you're saying.
So taking my knight is the safest option, with the understanding that you're giving up that knight.
Because you're
So
going to
you're
take it with one of your pawns.
correct. But the alternative would be to let my knight get into that fork position, which is infinitely worse.
Because you could have also taken him with your h6 pawn.
I could have, and I specifically didn't because your rook is still in the H file,
Hmm. And I
and
could
I
have
didn't want
just,
to leave that giant open space to my king.
right. Okay. That's okay. That makes sense then.
Plus, because I used my F pawn, now my rook has a great open lane.
Oh, yeah.
So I can come in and start terrorizing your pieces.
I don't like that.
It's not perfect because you have pretty good defenses set up, but it gives me a little more movement freedom. And it gives me a little more options to actually move pieces.
So
I gotta get my
your
king out of there.
I heard that. Hmm.
Was that a question?
What? Um, so mm, Jono Sabe.
So you could, if you wanted to start opening up some spaces, you could do a pawn trade by moving your B2 pawn forward, depending on how aggressive you wanted to be. Because then my choice would be to either take that pawn with my pawn, and then you could take it with your pawn, or
Mm.
let you initiate the trade, and then I would take it with my, like, to let you take my C5 pawn with your pawn, and then take it with my knight. Which would probably be a little better for me, but